Yes.
Got by then?
Oh, how are you, young man? You finally made it.
Yeah,
Dan Pena.
Another seat for you.
Okay, we need another chair. Introduce yourself. This man is from Australia, I believe.
Hi, Chief Honor. Hello, my boy.
Hi.
Korea.
Put it at this end. Okay, so now all we have is the Chinese guys. Okay, which are on their way. They're in little dugout canoes. They're coming, hopefully. So there is a lot of. We'll get back to your deal, but I still think it's expensive. So it's easy in property because there's a lot of dictum about real estate and what can be done and what can't be done, what can be financed, what can't be financed, you know. But Ron LeGrand, as we said before, I've seen him evict a grandmother on Christmas Eve with my own eyes on CBS national television because he went and set a brand. He says all publicity is good publicity. I said, Ron, this cannot be good publicity. Trust me. Throwing a little old lady out, you know, and taking her furniture out on Christmas Eve cannot be good publicity. I don't care what the fuck you think. I mean, but he was, you know, he says it is. It's good publicity. I turned out being right. It was bad publicity because they wrote about him for weeks and weeks and weeks. What a shithouse he was for, you know, for throwing the poor little lady out. Okay, but what we did on the side is we put her, you know, I helped put her back in another house, which, you know, didn't make the papers because I felt bad that I was even on the premises watching this happen. But I mean, you know, in most states, and you know, there's just a lot of things that are considered absolutes in real estate, and they're not absolutes. There are no absolutes in any industry. The only absolute, if you go up into space, you should have a way to come back. Now that to me is an absolute. And that's why when Sally and I are going to go on this thing, the Virgin deal, next year, it's going to go into the lower ebbs of space, you know, for $200 grand a head. I want to do that, you know. Well, that'll be fun. It's, you know, but it takes a lot for me to enjoy myself and have fun now. I mean, you know, normally it costs a lot of money. And I've said already, the road to success is always under construction. Something's always going wrong. Always. You know, property markets change. In industries like the internet-based industries, it's easier to fix. Because you shouldn't have a lot of manpower involved. You should just have a couple of flaky programmers, maybe a couple of marketing guys. In some cases, I know a guy who's been through this seminar a couple times that was a programmer for a big company, Fortune 500 company, that was making 80 grand a month. This is 2002, 2003, $80,000 a month, part-time on the internet, while his whole job as a programmer, senior programmer, was $65,000 a year. He had no overhead, no employees, no nothing. No nothing. Yet he was insecure to leave his job as a programmer. Yeah? He made in 1 month what he made a year. But he was insecure. And finally, it took him almost a year after he had like $400,000 in the bank, cash. He decided, oh, I think I can leave. And then he wanted to get a consultancy agreement with a company where he still worked half-time, you know, and he still had his medical and all this other bullshit to cover part of his overhead. But he left the second year, and he went on to make a lot of money, and still does make a lot of money. And but the internet is really an interesting place because there are no rules whatsoever, especially if you're not based in the United States. If you're not based in the United States, you know, and the Federal Trade Commission and some other of the regulatory bodies can't get a hold of you. Like where he is. You know, Romania, Belarus, all the the Neanderthal countries, where they still run around scraping their knuckles on the ground. I mean, China, Korea, Vietnam, parts of Panama, Costa Rica, most of the South American countries, even Canada. The U.S. are ballbusters, though, and the U.K. are ballbusters, except for when you go offshore in the Channel Islands. Then then you can get away with things, But now I would suggest, I've had people here. I had a couple that came. This guy had trained for the Olympics for all his life. This last Olympic, and he was going to try out for the long jump. I still like calling it the broad jump. Jumping on broads, but anyway, birds. Anyway, he was trying out, and all his life, he was a finely tuned athlete. He was 31 years old, something like that, and he couldn't make the UK track team. But he was part Indian, so he went back and he applied. He somehow got an Indian passport real quick, and he made the Indian track team. And then 6 weeks, he had made the team. 6 weeks before the Olympics, he tears a hamstring muscle. So his entire life that he had planned for all these years, collapses. You talk about a guy that was a little bit depressed. I mean, and I talked to him about it. And his wife had muscular dystrophy, and she had been pronounced like dead when she was 12 or 13 years. And somehow, through medicine, holistic medicine, huggy-feely shit, she had resurrected her body and was a finely tuned athlete in her own right. And they were married. And when you have private time with me, they came in individually. I always see them individually. And of course, her story about their life and his story of their life are like, talking about the same couple. And so then I bring them in together, and I bring out my notes, and I said, I don't normally take notes, but in this particular case, I took some notes. And I said, do you know that she thinks so-and-so about such and such? And he goes, no. And do you know that he thinks that such and such about something? No. And I said, well, you kids got to get your head screwed on straight somehow, or you're going to have big trouble. Anyway, they got a divorce about 6 months later. But they both decided, because they had a business together, they couldn't go forward with the business. I forget what the business was, but it was something, And they both went on the net. And they're both making a lot of money on the net, separately, doing separate things. From scratch. No background, no nothing. And that is where you can, it's like the gold rush days. You can start from scratch. I've helped property developers on the net. I've helped them sell out their stupid fucking projects they couldn't give away. I remember one of the biggest builders in Asia, and they're having projects sending out this, 300 unit, whatever, I don't know what it is, some piece of shit. And Ken, have you tried the internet? What for? We hire through such and such an agent. No, not hiring people. I'm talking about selling these load of shite that you got. No, we didn't think of that. And I said, why don't you take one of your worthless kids and put him on it? And a year later, 65% of the project sold out. And then he did me one better. He started selling on Facebook. Not just pay-per-click. He says, did you tell Mr. Pena about, we're playing golf, did you tell Mr. Pena about how I'm selling on Facebook? He's a lawyer, Lawyers can be retrained. Yeah. And he said, yeah. He says, yeah. And so now they're selling on Facebook. I said, what? And I didn't know about that. Now I know about it, and so now we use it. But because Twitter, Facebook, all those other social media things are great outlets. So, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. Most of the property guys, the small guys, haven't figured that out yet. They haven't figured that out yet. Okay. Well, welcome aboard. Glad you finally made it. Now you don't know this, and I'm not trying to make you happy or make you scared, but all these guys are German. They're all from Germany. Okay, he lives in the Channel Islands, but they're all German. They're all German. He's Romanian, which is kind of like a half-assed German. So I'm glad to see a regular person. Notwithstanding, Australia is not exactly regular, but anyway. The three people that are still on their way are three Chinese, and hopefully they'll get here. A father and two sons, the Chens. And the one American has probably died on the way. I haven't heard from him. And but being an American, he's a weak cunt anyway, so he didn't show up. So what can I tell you? And minutia never makes any money. Right now, we're talking about. We just started the 7 steps of the seminar, because before lunch today was all introduction. Okay, so now we're 10% into the first step. And it's about building your own personal foundation. We went through rules, there are no rules. Now we're beyond common sense, because common sense dictates a lot of what we do in life, too much in my judgment. The part of that is beyond common sense is minutia never makes money, it only makes manure. Did you understand what minutia is? No, I know you. Do you? Verstehen?
Details, Kleinigkeit.
Your specialty. Detail is your specialty, is the German specialty. It's the corps du jour. Detail. Cross the T, dot the I. Spreadsheet after spreadsheet. Jawohl, mein Herr. Next seminar, in your guys' honor, I'm going to change these slides. There's the German way and there's the QLA way. I wish that I had been perceptive enough to understand that before when I was reading, doing some of these slides, but I wasn't. Minutia doesn't make anything. And this is a hard concept, especially when you're very detail-oriented. Computers have done a great deal of harm by making managers even more inwardly focused. I couldn't think of his name, Peter Drucker. I apologize. He died a year or two ago. And Peter Drucker and I agreed on only one or two things, one of which is computers that fucked up small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, and the entrepreneur. And he believed harm for making managers even more inwardly focused. Because we spent way too much time on computers. And I'm not even going to go where the kids are wasting all their time on computers. But that's already a proven fact. They're getting tunnel syndrome and all the other stuff. And now there's a new line of psychiatry that's come out to help kids, get unaddicted to Twitter and all this other stuff, which is a pretty pathetic thing. Now, when I was a kid, of course, we didn't have anything, but I was so poor. I had a possum for a dog. I had a possum for a dog. I didn't have any fucking bicycle or any of that kind of stuff. Unlike my spoiled children. But I mean, we used to run around and we got in a lot of trouble. Ran around and, we didn't rob people, but we certainly beat a lot of people up for fun. So we weren't smart enough to take their money. I was telling Walt and Howard when I met with them in Las Vegas, these two guys I've known 50 years, when we're beating all these guys up, why don't we take their goddamn money? And Walt and Howard looked at me and said, we never thought of it. I mean, if we're gonna get arrested anyway. We're going to jail anyway. So when we thump them, then we just take their goddamn wallet. We take their money out of the wallet and we go, yeah. And Walt says, the German, the intellect, goes, yeah. We should, since we're going to get arrested and get in trouble anyway, but we never did. We never stole their money. Anyway, I would have made a head of, then that might have led to bank robberies, and so I'm glad to just assume we didn't steal anybody's money. Okay, we're still in the first thing. We're talking about personal foundation. Now to focus on the ends, not the means. You guys, I say with respect, are focused on the detail more than the ends. You justify in your own mind that the way you get to this, especially the way you get to the ends is you have to focus on the detail. I don't agree. I can prove to you categorically without a shadow of a doubt. You don't have to focus on. Somebody has to focus on the detail. That's the differentiation. Just as you said, your partners, you don't trust them to do the numbers because then you wouldn't trust the numbers. You trust the numbers because you do the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm here to say that you can hire somebody for 20,000 euros a year or 2,000 euros a month part-time to do your goddamn numbers. You can hire a university student, a PhD in finance student. They can run the numbers 1,000 times better than you. You show them how to do it one time, and he will do, or she will do, or it will do. Some of this cross-gender shit, you know. It will do your job. It will do your job. You can hire somebody like him. You know, just I wouldn't, but if you can hire somebody like him with 170 IQ. You know, they could do that, no problem. My son, when we were looking at numbers of some of these Chinese companies, he said, Dad, you know, we go back to the hotel, we have a drink, and he said, son, I have a 26-year-old son who just got an MBA who I moved to China to learn how to speak Chinese. Anyway, so we're sitting in the bar. Hey, Dad, we got time to talk now? Is anybody going to come? I said, no. He said, are these guys for fucking real? I mean, these are successful guys. Are these bankers for real? They're asking you questions like they're high school seniors in math. Yeah, these are for real. These are the real guys. And he says, no wonder you wanted to come to China. I said, these are the guys we're going to take down. It's going to be like Jesse James robbing fucking banks. Except they got no guns to chase us. All we got to do is figure out a model that works in China. You know? It's going to be like a Wild West, wide earth, just shooting them down like dogs. He says, Dad, it's unbelievable the unsophisticated questions they ask you. Now, Derek, my son, I said, Derek, they may be just trying to set us up because maybe they're smarter than that. I know they're not. But I don't want my son to become so fucking arrogant that he thinks that, you know, we're just going to walk over these guys. We're not. They're smart guys. But most of the financial community in China is unsophisticated. It just is. They haven't been around long enough. They haven't been raped. No, but not by me. Only if the Germans come, the property developers come. They come from Kaiserslautern in planes. There's a direct flight to Shanghai. Yeah, or they come from Romania. You know, God forbid they come from Romania. Yeah, but it's you guys focus on the detail too much. You can't get as many deals done focusing on just the detail. Okay. These are companies, the most admired companies from 2009. That was blurred? It does look blurred, doesn't it? Apple, Berkshire Hathaway, Toyota is still from 2009 before they got in trouble now. Google, Johnson & Johnson, etc., etc. That is blurred. And they're number one, they're ranked number one in their industry. These companies, if they focus, they focus on the detail now because they got worried about product liability and a bunch of other stuff. You don't have those problems. You know, I venture to guess that you, and maybe you, spend as much time as Walmart developing a project to put up a new super Walmart. If it's even anywhere near reasonably close, somebody's doing something wrong.
The bank needs 2 to 3 weeks to decide.
Okay, the bank, we're not talking about the bank, we're talking about you.
Yeah, but if I have the project here and the bank will take 2 weeks and I have time to calculate the numbers whether everything is okay.
So do you give them the information before you do the calculations or after you do the calculations?
I'm in the glad situation that the bank, after a few years, doesn't ask for details anymore.
It's because you've been successful with all your projects.
Yeah. I say, I want to do this, and it should be so. You can have numbers if you want.
Okay. So you still have a banker that can put your loan through that you've dealt with and have experience with.
Yeah.
That's super. That's normally not the case because the banking situation's all changed. Now, what's the limit of this banker? How much money can he lend?
At the moment, he's about 11 million, and they say they can go up to 100 million, but I don't believe they will do the next year. So, as I said, the project with 125 million, I need another bank for, because they maybe could do this, but they won't go so fast. They did 3 million with us last year, and they promised, they wrote for 11 or 13 million this year, and I cannot come now and say, now please 125, that won't work.
Okay, but I mean, now do the banks have joint venture partners that they can do a deal together with another bank?
Maybe, but I think the steps would be too fast. From 3 million last year to, and it was the first project with this bank, and 2 projects which they wrote they will finance this year with about 11 to 13 million, and maybe a bit more. And then during this is not realized. It's just being signed and the part is realized, and I come again with 10 times as much, and I already have 4 times as much as last year. I think they won't be comfortable. So I say, okay, let's do these 10 to 40 millions, and then do a next step when they see everything is fine.
Stefan?
I think one issue with the German banks, the banks which are still lending are the local banks, and they are mainly cooperative banks. So they are not part of the big German banks like Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank and so on, but they are the Volksbank and Sparkasse, which only lend in a very local market. And that's where you can still get liquidity for local projects, but why you reach a ceiling fairly quickly. So that's, yeah.
Okay. And so is this the biggest bank in your area?
I think the biggest bank in the area that is in lending mode.
And why are they in a lending mode as opposed to the other banks that aren't in a lending mode?
Because they are locally financing, and there have been nearly no problems at all last years. And the
Well,
the big banks all suffer from the financial crisis because they have the one or other customer who broke down.
These local banks basically just lend what they take in deposits. They would never refinance themselves in the interbank market.
Mm-hmm.
They refinance themselves.
They do?
Yeah.
But afterwards.
Depends on how long I want to have a fixed rate.
Okay, well, I mean, so this is an anomaly. This is a pocket of low-hanging fruit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, well, we'll talk about it when we get to the financing, but how can you maximize the low-hanging fruit that you can gobble down and shove down your throat while the opportunities still exist?
I couldn't write everything in here.
Okay, well, I know you couldn't. I know you couldn't. Okay. If you had another diploma, maybe you could. Maybe you could. Or you could give it to Einstein over here and give it, maybe he could write it.
It's not because it's complicated. It's
No, I know it's not. See, when you yank the chain of a German, he says, well, I understand, but I know it's not fucking complicated. I'm yanking your chain. Do they translate yanking chain?
No, it's not
Well,
a literal translation for it.
Well, I'm teasing you.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Jesus Christ.
So Peña?
Even the impaired, call me Dan, Mr. Pena, I buried my father. Okay, even the impaired gets it. And if the impaired gets it, who is the fucking, even though he may be the smartest, he's obviously the weakest fucking link. Okay, if the impaired gets it, if you get it and the impaired get it, then I figure everybody got it. Okay, what's the question?
Could you give it to accountants, CPAs, or how you call them? Like they, in Germany, they do calculation for projects and you give
Sure they can, sure you can. But he doesn't trust him. Is it because you're too cheap, you don't want to pay him, or do you don't trust him? Ah, I have a feeling. Short arms, deep pockets.
When we do a project, it is very easy to say the project is okay or no. It's a few seconds, we look at it and it's okay or not okay. And to be sure that nothing will happen, because I don't want to have a bad project, I do some calculations with problems that may occur and with chances that there could be, and the calculations are higher than the costs are, the incomes will be, the real costs
Sure,
will be lower,
understand.
and the income will be higher.
You're doing your own risk
And
analysis.
so,
Okay.
yeah, and it doesn't take so long as to explain to one, please. I would have sit him here and give him the numbers he shall enter. So I can do it on my own.
And good thing about crunching numbers, because I do it from time to time, I say it is when you negotiate, it doesn't matter with whom, it's a bank or someone else.
But the model changes every 5 minutes, yeah?
Sorry?
The model changes every 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. And so you know which change of which number has which impact on the bottom line. So you can easily, when you're in a meeting or
Okay,
negotiation.
that may be well and true, but I'm here to tell you, you are restricting your ability to grow. Yeah. Let's say that you're right. I don't believe that you're 100% right, but let's just say you are 100% right. And let's say that but you're restricting, by definition, categorically, you're restricting your ability to grow based on what you can do as an individual. That's no way to grow a fucking business. I'm just telling you. Of course, I understand. Of course, I know. That's why I'm saying it. So I'm just saying that's no way to grow a business. So either one, you gotta have somebody else do it, or you gotta. But even if you do big projects, even if you do a €1 billion project, and you do the numbers, you can only, according to what you say, for me to understand and for me to be able to interface with the banker, and for me to, when the parameters change, for me to understand, because I understand the numbers intricately, because I've helped put them together, I've manufactured them, I initiated them. You're limiting your ability to be a one-man show.
Of course.
Okay. And you're not, I'm here to teach you how to be more than a one-man show. That's the whole reason you come here.
It's a white piece of paper.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm okay. We're going to get there. But the thing is that you can't do it by yourself. That's the bottom line.
Of course.
You need more people,
Yeah.
or at least one more person, and not one more person. Because if that person gets hit by a truck, then you're back to where you are today. And if the Polish incident, air tragedy, didn't teach anybody anything, everybody knows what happened in Poland. All those people died. The president, the head of the Bank of Poland, the head of the army and the Air Force, the head of everybody fucking died. And I've been telling people for years, don't fly all together. The thing about corporate jets and corporate planes, the team flying is such a load of shit. Fly on separate planes. Do you want your whole fucking legacy to go down with one air crash? Well, one whole fucking country went down. You will see insurance policies for key executives change over fucking night. They are canceling policies left, right, and center. They are saying that, you're restricted to how many people you can fly with, etc., which I've been saying for 15 years. Because I've seen this, not in such a magnitude as this, but I've seen Best Foods guys went down a number of years ago. Gulf Oil 25 years ago. I've seen this happen more than once. So, if you want your legacy to go down a toilet, be the only one that knows how to do anything. Or worse yet, keep everything in your goddamn head. Or keep everything on your miserable little laptop, and then when you go down, it goes down with you. I've seen this happen a lot of times. I guess did I answer your question? Or did you have a question? Okay. Okay, Einstein, did you have a question?
No.
No. Okay. Now, the same companies that we just were talking about beyond that we talked about, for the most part, are also most admired people management. And because they're building that, what did you say that you wanted your CEO should be?
Culture.
Huh? Culture. You already forgot.
Enthusiasm.
Culture. Okay. But I mean, when you have 3 people, you're not building a culture. When you got 103 people, maybe you start to build a culture. When you got 1,000 people, then you got a culture. But when you got 5 people, or you got 1 person and you got 3 partners you don't trust with the numbers, I mean, that's not much of a goddamn culture. It's very German, but it's not much of a culture.
No, it's not a mistrust against these partners. It's a kind of approaching the behavior of the numbers versus each other. So I want to think about it myself and calculate the risks myself.
Yeah, well, I understand that, but that's still a one-man show. It's still a one-man show.